welcome to Bonnets at Dawn, the podcast that explores the lives and works of 18th, 19th and 20th century women writers. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman.
And I'm your host, Lauren Burke.
This special episode of the show is kicking off our mini-series all about literary tourism, which will be a deep dive on where some of our favourite writers lived and wrote.
Now, literary tourism has always played a big role on Bonnets at Dawn. Back when we solely focused on Jane Austen and the Bronte sisters, we went on road trips to Bath, Chawton, and Haworth, where we were lucky enough to tape episodes with the curators from the Parsonage, Jane Austen House Museum, and Chawton House Library. Traveling to these sites and speaking with these experts not only gave us a new perspective on literature, but also made us feel closer to the authors. And of course, we had a good time together.
We did have fun, but I do remember having a little cry after we left the Jane Austen House Museum, because although I grew up like 30 minutes away, I had never been before. And so visiting after just really loving Jane Austen's work for over a decade, and at this point I'd worked at the Jane Austen Centre in Bath and I was co-hosting a podcast about Jane Austen, but I still hadn't been. It just meant that the first visit ended up being quite intense and emotional. I remember it was December, wasn't it? It was like very early December, and it was really quiet because it wasn't around her birthday celebrations, it was just before that. And they were like, oh, it's usually quiet at this time. And so there was no one else really in the house. It was just the two of us. And it felt like you could hear the house breathe, right? Like a clock ticking and like floorboards creaking and like a bird outside the window. It was so quiet. And then you could just hear us like talking into the microphone really quietly. And just seeing like the tiny wooden table where she wrote sitting by the window, I did feel closer to her, which is so cheesy, but it helped me understand why the move to Chawton was so important to her life and career, just to have that security, you know, like a home with her mother and sister and friend. She wasn't dependent on the whims of a husband. She was at home. She was safe and she could write. And it was magical. And I wore a red cloak.
You did. We've got the photo evidence to prove it as well. I have to say our arrival into Haworth for the first time also I had similar feelings. That is something I will always remember, because not only did we take the steam train into town, which was quite the experience, and I felt like we were also the only ones on that steam train. So it just felt like it had come especially for us. But then you arrive in Haworth and it still looks Victorian.
Yes.
Like it looks nearly the way that the Brontes would have known it. So it does truly feel like you've stepped back in time. And that first afternoon that we were there, we walked through that massive graveyard that leads up to the Bronte parsonage. And then we did sneak out into a forbidden area over a wall.
We got stuck.
We got stuck. Is the official line. But then eventually sort of like we made it out into the moors and read Jane Austen, and read Jane Eyre while the sun was setting. And like, at the risk of sounding really corny, it did feel like the perfect literary pilgrimage. And, you know, after having such positive experiences on the road, we knew that we really wanted, you know, more of this. We wanted to explore more literary homes, which meant opening up the show to more authors other than Jane Austen and the Bronte sisters. So Elizabeth Gaskell was next, and she really did feel like the most natural choice.
Elizabeth Stevenson was born in 1810, and at 22 she married the Unitarian minister William Gaskell, and they settled in Manchester. Following the death of their young son, William encouraged Elizabeth to write a novel, and in 1848 she anonymously published Mary Barton, A Tale of Manchester Life. The book received quite a bit of praise. Writer and historian Thomas Carlyle even reviewed it as far above the ordinary garbage of novels. More important...
Love that review.
more importantly, it caught the attention of one Charles Dickens, who would go on to become Gaskell's publisher, editor, friend, and foe. Mrs. Gaskell went on to write dozens of short stories and 6 novels. She is most well known for North and South, which is kind of like Pride and Prejudice meets the Industrial Revolution, Wives and Daughters, Cranford, and her controversial biography of friend and fellow author Charlotte Bronte.
Now, between 1850 and 1865, Elizabeth and William lived in what is now 84 Plymouth Grove in Manchester. The large Regency-style villa was just outside of the city, and it was surrounded by fields and gardens. Elizabeth could even keep pigs and chickens and a cow. In 1850, she wrote to her friend Totty Fox. Gotta love the name, Totty Fox. I must try and make the house give as much pleasure to others as I can and make it as little a selfish thing as I can. My dear, it's 150 a year, and I dare say we shall be ruined. Elizabeth really made a great use of that house. She frequently entertained notable visitors such as the one and only Charles Dickens, John Ruskin, Charlotte Bronte, and Harriet Beecher Stowe. If you are a regular, yeah, take your shot. The house remained within the Gaskell family until 1913, at which point it became part of the University of Manchester, and it was painted pink.
Aww.
Lovely. I know. And used for administrative offices and international student housing. The house was then established as a literary home in 2014 after a long-fought campaign by the Manchester Historic Buildings Trust and a grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund. This grant allowed for the restoration and reimagining of the house and gardens as Elizabeth would have known them. A team of amazing volunteers are on hand to guide you on a tour of William's study, the drawing room, the morning room, and the dining room, where Elizabeth wrote and was often interrupted.
In 2018, we were lucky enough to spend a week with the volunteers and staff at Elizabeth Gaskell's house at the invitation of Sally Jastrzebski-Lloyd, who welcomed us with open arms, and we experienced their amazing literary community firsthand. In that 1 week, we attended tours, lectures, theatre, and a Dickens pub quiz, all at the house. We also produced an audio tour with the volunteers and hosted a panel in collaboration with the Bronte Parsonage about the friendship between Elizabeth and Charlotte.
Obviously, Elizabeth Gaskell's house holds a very special place in our hearts. So we decided to check in with Sally at the start of this new season to see what's new at Elizabeth Gaskell's house for 2020 and how they are dealing with everything in the middle of the shutdown.
Well, what's new for 2020? Well, the big thing is going to be Elizabeth Gaskell's bedroom, as you mentioned, and work has started. So our super volunteer team, which includes Jane Baxter, who's a big Bonnets fan, she and Adam and Frank have pulled up all the flooring to reveal the floorboards underneath, and it also uncovered the hearthstone as well for the fireplace. And we are prepping the walls for wallpapering now and for painting. While all that's been happening, we've managed to get sponsorship for the wallpaper. So we've got a lovely wallpaper from Little Green, who are a Manchester company, and it's heritage wallpaper, dates from about 1850. So that's exciting. But floral, of course. And then we've got sponsorship from a fireplace company who are going to give us an authentic fireplace, and that's going to be installed. We've also been doing lots of furniture shopping, which has been really exciting, and a chaise longue arrived last week, and we are looking at half-tester beds. But our fundraising efforts have been going really well. We've raised about £8,000, including gift aid, and we're aiming for 10,000. So we've just got another 2 to go. Although if we do get extra, it will mean that we can add extra furnishings and extra objects and things like that. And that's really what we're trying to encourage people with the read-along that we're doing at the moment. the North and South Read Along, that if people enjoy it, if they could give us a £3 donation via our Givey page, which you can access from the website. So we are still hoping to do the bedroom this year for the autumn. The volunteer team are going to continue in the background while the house is closed, doing research, looking for scouring auction sites and things like that, which is quite exciting, really. So that's the biggie. We are hoping, although current circumstances withstanding, to have a new exhibition this year, and the plan was and is for it to be about Cranford. So we're going back to the literature, yes. So Ruskin finishes. So we've got Ruskin on at the moment, and that's going to finish in the summer, and we will open with this exhibition on Cranford. And it's really, that's going to explore how Cranford was received at the time, how it's received now, the adaptations. I mean, did you know it's not only been the much loved BBC TV miniseries, but there are also countless play versions of it as well, and we've got playbills, and we've got scripts. So and we've got all amazing editions of it as well, which are just fascinating to look at. We're obviously going to look at the Amazons of Cranford with the women, and the feminist angle on it, really. And lots of interesting things about the stories. You know, is it based on Knutsford? How much of it's based on Knutsford? How much of it isn't? Or if we can get enough money, we really want to get one of the costumes from the BBC series. Hopefully Judi Dench's, but it does cost quite a bit of money to hire one. But fingers crossed, if we could get that would just be the icing on the cake, really. So, so lots of things. Earlier this year, we renamed our seminar room the Bronte Room. So we've got a meeting room upstairs, the Bronte Room, because it was originally the guest bedroom, and it's highly likely that Charlotte would have slept there. So we thought that was an apt thing to do. And it kind of fits into our whole redevelopment of the first floor and really bringing that to life. So as well as the bedroom, we're going to have new interpretation, including a family tree of Elizabeth's Unitarian connections to actually show how she's connected to the Wedgwoods, the pottery makers, and to Charles Darwin, and to other leading Unitarians of the time. And we are also going to have a timeline as well, which is quite exciting. And it's going to show Elizabeth and William's life and the life of the house against national and Manchester events, to give people a sense of what things were happening as she was writing Mary Barton, North and South, as she was having her children and things like that, to give it a sense of context. So, there's lots going on. And, of course, all our fantastic volunteers are all involved with the writing copy, doing the research and things for all these things. So the house is fully closed for the whole time, but we want to keep people's spirits up. Apologies, I'm being interrupted like Elizabeth at this very moment. Right, let me start again. So the house is fully closed, but we really wanted to do something to just keep people positive and to keep us all motivated as well, and to try and keep our volunteers engaged and the staff engaged, and to kind of recreate the nice atmosphere that we have at the house, which I think we do. So I came up with the idea with a read-along and put it out there as an idea, influenced heavily by the experience of Bonnets at Dawn, to just keep the messages coming in on their social media. If anyone's got any stories or experience of them visiting the house, tell us about them, because it's these really nice comments and feedback that really keep us going through these times. And it's nice to have that interaction with our visitors and our volunteers. That's the biggest thing we're going to miss, is that interaction and all those conversations. So, yeah, keep up the chat. That's what I'm asking, on social media and at a social distance.
So, Hannah, half jokingly, I did ask Sally if we would be able to sit on Elizabeth's bed. And the answer is yes. And best news yet, they are possibly toying with this idea of letting someone spend the night in Elizabeth Gaskell's bedroom for a fundraiser. So I think that we need to get in on that and be those gals.
Sally, if you're listening, I'll write you a blank check. You just do what you got to do. Okay? Thank you. Now, if you would like to help Elizabeth Gaskell's house with their current fundraiser, do check out their website, elizabethgaskellhouse.co.uk, and their read-along for May will be held via their Twitter @Gaskell's House and Facebook @Elizabeth Gaskell's House.
And we have a very exciting season on the way where we will be discussing some of our favorite literary homes, including Newstead Abbey, Chawton House, and Wordsworth Grasmere. And Hannah, if people would like to learn more about our season and all of those amazing literary homes, where should they find us on the internet?
You can find us, as always, on Instagram and Twitter @bonnetsatdawn. You can email us, bonnetsatdawn@gmail.com, and you can join our Facebook group by searching for Bonnets at Dawn.